Hey everybody, it is Maddie here with Altcoin Buzz with you on this Thursday. Today we're going to be discussing the so-called lowlights from Mark Zuckerberg's congressional testimony, during which, of course, Libra was discussed and was pretty much the point of focus. You have individuals like Congressman Sherman that have come out and have disparaged cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, in the context of that Libra discussion. On Forbes.com, we'll be discussing that. Then on TechCrunch, we're unfortunately covering the news that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are having a very bad day, and we'll get to that in just a second. The market is not the most inspiring it's ever been. However, on the flip side of things, we do have some pretty good news in the way of Bakkt. We'll let you know about this tweet and that update, as well as related coverage on finance.yahoo.com. Then again, on Forbes, the Bitcoin halving is coming. In case you haven't heard about that, we'll also briefly touch on the news that the Telegram token investors have rejected a refund offer. But before all that, let's take a look at the markets here. We're sitting at $205 billion, pretty much flat since yesterday. Prices still down a percentage point or two. Bitcoin at the time of this recording at $7,497 with 65.8% dominance. So you may have heard that Mark Zuckerberg was in Washington giving a testimony to Congress and discussing the legitimacy of Libra. In a nutshell, this was his message, quote, "I don't control Libra." In fact, that was the central theme of Facebook CEO's Mark Zuckerberg's testimony in Congress yesterday on the 23rd of October. The House of Representatives unleashed critiques of his approach to cryptocurrency, privacy, encryption, and running a giant corporation during 6 hours of hearings. So during the hearing before the House Financial Services Committee that you can watch in this video right here, Zuckerberg recommitted to only releasing Libra with full US regulatory approval. But given the tone of the questioning and Zuckerberg's lack of fresh answers since Facebook David Marcus testified about Libra in July, Libra now looks even less likely to launch in 2020. For context, of course, and in the background of this testimony, you got to remember the fact that 5 big heavy hitter partners have left the Libra Association. Those are Visa, MasterCard, eBay, PayPal, and a few others as well, I'm sure, have their confidence shaken. Representative Maxine Waters started things off and set the tone by declaring, perhaps, quote, "You believe that you're above the law." That's rich for her to say. "And it appears that you are aggressively increasing the size of your company and are willing to step over anyone, including your competitors, women, people of color," I don't know how that applies, "to your own users, and even our democracy to get what you want. In fact, you have opened up a serious discussion about whether Facebook should be broken up." I'm not a big fan of Mark Zuckerberg, I have to say, but I despise Maxine Waters even more, personally speaking. I understand that there are some issues that would be brought up in a congressional testimony, and I think Mark Zuckerberg should rightly come under fire for some of the way he's handled things in the past. But there are, I think, some counter arguments that I'm somewhat warming up to that we'll get to in just a second. But here are a few highlights or positive moments that came out of the hearing. They could be lowlights depending on how you want to look at them, again, in the exchanges between Mark Zuckerberg and Congress. So Zuckerberg claims China will soon have its own version of such a cryptocurrency, so regulators shouldn't block Libra. And that's at the heart of the discussion point I want to get to in just a second. But highlight or lowlight number 2, Mark is open to regulators requiring Libra to be majority backed by the US dollar. Zuckerberg would leave inheritance to his children in Libra since it's backed 1-to-1 with real currency. I guess the idea there being that he's willing to get behind it at a personal level. He wouldn't commit to blocking anonymous wallets, but he's open to baking more anti-money laundering into Libra's network. Zuckerberg plans to expand verifying users via government ID to battle abuse of Facebook. And he said that Libra partners left because, quote, "it's a risky project and there's been a lot of scrutiny." There's a whole lot more to this article here, including many more highlights/lowlights. But here's the important part here, the discussion about Libra in the context of developing really a US-led national cryptocurrency, because as we all know, China has its own that it is developing, and I think it's only a matter of time until they really put more and more resources and momentum behind that effort. So Zuckerberg tried to leverage nationalistic sentiment to deflect scrutiny. Quote, "As soon as we put forward the white paper around the Libra project, China immediately announced a private partnership working with companies to extend the work that they've already done with Alipay into a digital renminbi as part of the Belt and Road initiative that they have, and they're planning on launching that in the next few months. He later said that for Libra, quote, Chinese companies would be the primary competitors. And again, as you all know, I'm no fan of Libra. I don't think it's a cryptocurrency. I think there are dangers associated with it. However, I think this is the best argument I've heard to give Zuckerberg the somewhat green light going forward. Because if Libra doesn't come up with this kind of initiative, then you can bet that China will. And that doesn't mean that we're going to have to use it in North America or the Western Hemisphere, but China definitely has something in the pipeline. So personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I would like to see something US-led versus China-led in this space. Let Libra be the new corporate cryptocurrency that gets the first mover advantage rather than something that comes out of Beijing. Again, that's just me personally speaking. No disrespect to our Chinese members of the Altcoin Buzz Army, but I, of course, live in Canada, in North America, and I think from that perspective, there are some arguments to be made. It's a more lengthy issue, and there's a lot more to this piece. Check out the full review here, or the full article relating to that congressional testimony. It covers different aspects of regulation, what happened up on Capitol Hill, some of the exchanges, again, between Mark Zuckerberg and congressional leaders. So this is on techcrunch.com. Again, quite a beastly article here. We'll link to it, and you can check out the rest in the description below. Let us know what you think about my opinion there, about having, at least the silver lining would be to have something US-led versus something that comes directly out of China, because that's imminent and it's inevitable, at least in my opinion. And then you have the fearmongers of the world coming out and, of course, attacking Mark Zuckerberg. Now, don't get me wrong. Mark Zuckerberg is deserving of some critique and some attacks. There's no doubt about that. But here you have Congressman Brad Sherman, who's warning that Bitcoin is a threat to the US dollar. Not Libra, but Bitcoin in general. And he may be right. I mean, I don't disagree that it is a threat to the US dollar, but it's a legitimate threat. It's a better system and deserves to be taken seriously. And for a lot of reasons that perhaps we don't have time to get into here, the US dollar deserves to be supplanted, at least in some respects. So, of course, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg appeared in front of Congress on Wednesday for a hearing regarding the social media giant's digital currency project known as Libra. And during the hearing, US Congressman Brad Sherman went on an anti-Bitcoin and cryptocurrency rant where he dismissed the financial technology as only useful for criminals and warned that these new types of asset have the potential to threaten the US dollar's dominance over the global financial system. Again, deservedly so. He's not wrong, but he's being a fearmonger and he's being hyperbolic in terms of the consequences that would result in more widespread Bitcoin adoption. If you haven't seen some of these videos, again, go back to the TechCrunch piece. There is an embedded video here where you can watch more of the testimony. It's almost painful to watch some of, and I'm not, being an ageist here, I'm not insulting the elderly, but some of these politicians are so out of touch, are so out of their element. They probably don't even understand the underlying conceptual ideas behind cryptocurrency, let alone blockchain. And for them to be sitting up on high and to be so sanctimonious and lecturing the rest of us, when I watch the videos, when I watch the exchanges, I get the genuine impression that they don't know what they're talking about. They're very ill-informed and they're not with it. They're so out of step. And you can see that in some of the exchanges with Mark Zuckerberg, especially because even if he's not my favorite cat in the world, he's a smart guy. The guy is a very intelligent human being, and I think you can see some of the exasperation when he's forced to hold an audience with, some of these older individuals, some of these hopelessly out of touch politicians. They don't know what they're talking about. Going back to Sherman here, the first thing that the congressman did when given a chance to speak was point to a U.S. President Donald Trump tweet regarding the use of cryptocurrencies for unlawful behavior and enter a RAND report regarding the use of cryptocurrency by terrorists into the official record of the hearing. According to Sherman, the U.S. dollar works amazingly well for everyone except for criminals, right? Because criminals never use cash. Nonetheless, here is his quote: "For the richest man in the world to come here and hide behind the poorest people in the world and say that's who you're really trying to help. You're trying to help those for whom the dollar is not a good currency. Drug dealers, terrorists, tax evaders," end quote, according to Sherman. That has got to be the most disingenuous, dishonest framing of an issue I could ever drum. I couldn't write something more detached from reality than what Brad Sherman issued in that official statement. That is absolutely ludicrous. Sherman went as far to suggest more people will die in a world where cryptocurrencies exist because drug dealers' financial activities will become more efficient. Absolutely preposterous. The guy should be tarred and feathered for comments like that. That has no bearing in reality. So you can check out some of the rest of his comments. Brad Sherman, obviously being an opportunist here, taking advantage of, really his time in the spotlight with a high-profile testimony in the form of Mark Zuckerbergs. But there you have it. The fearmonger at large here, making sure he gets his sound bites. And unfortunately, it's working. Look at it here. We're covering him on Forbes.com. Let us know your thoughts about this. Again, as I just expressed, mine are that he should be tarred and feathered for being so painfully ignorant on the topic. But there you have it. Also on TechCrunch.com, you can read about how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are having a very bad day. Unfortunately, we've seen that Bitcoin is now sitting under 7,500. The price of Bitcoin and other cryptos tanked, continuing a months-long slide that has seen the value of digital currency slide by more than $2,000. Talking about Bitcoin, that is, from highs of above 10K earlier this year. And today the price of Bitcoin dropped to below 7,500, down from about 8,000 earlier yesterday. But here is some good news courtesy of The Block on Twitter. Bakkt's monthly Bitcoin futures skyrocketed to nearly $5 million in trading volume yesterday. We're going to read about that more in just a second, but you can see the very pronounced spike here on the 23rd of October. This is a chart examining daily traded volume of Bakkt monthly futures measured in millions of US dollars. And as you can see on the 22nd of October, we were at 690,000. That jumped really about fivefold to $4,810,000, seemingly overnight, perhaps in response to some of these really low prices that we're seeing. Buying opportunities, perhaps. That's the only explanation I have. But I'm actually not as interested in the cause right now, not so much as the observation itself, but that is significant. So here on finance.yahoo.com, we're discussing the fact that Bakkt's monthly Bitcoin futures hit nearly $5 million in trading volume. Again, $4.8 million on Wednesday. The figure is more than the total volume over the 9 previous trading days combined. The jump is likely because Bitcoin saw increased volatility yesterday as its price crashed by about 6% in only a few minutes. And that's, I gotta say, one cushion that mentally that I keep in my mind is that despite the massive retracements that we see, it is a very volatile space. But I kind of am of the mind of these individuals, these people that pumped up the futures volume to $4.81 million. I have a similar mindset because if I see a sudden and violent crash, that's an opportunity. And I've said it before, not financial advice, but if you want to think like a tycoon, if you want to be wealthy, one way or another, whether you're in crypto, whether you're in other spaces, the path to fortune involves buying up assets when blood is running in the streets. And of course, you can think of advice by Warren Buffett, whether you like what he has to say about Bitcoin and blockchain or not. The man is very successful. And he's always said, it's really been his tagline, be fearful when others are greedy, be greedy when others are fearful. I think that logic is important to keep in mind. So obviously this recent spike boosted up the average in terms of monthly Bitcoin futures. We're now at 20.22 million since the launch on September 23rd. What do you guys think? Is this an anomalous one-day occurrence? Is it just a statistical outlier? Does it matter? Does it not matter? Let us know your thoughts about it in the comments below. I like to see it in terms of how juxtaposed it is against the flash crash that we saw yesterday. This is really a nice, encouraging response to an extremely violent and discouraging, let's face it, a discouraging day in the markets today and yesterday especially. This is encouraging to see. I like to see this kind of stuff behind the scenes. It gives me hope personally. And finally, a couple quick stories here. Again, on Forbes, we've been talking a lot about the halving, which is coming up in 2020. If you're not familiar with what the halving is, it's basically the halving of the Bitcoin block reward from 12.5 Bitcoin currently every 10 minutes to about half of that, which is, I guess, 6.25. That's coming up in May of 2020. We've been discussing this ad nauseum, but if you're not familiar, I would check out this coverage on Forbes.com, which is taking a look at the technicalities of that. So check it out if you're so inclined. Finally, today we're looking at this piece on Coindesk.com. Telegram token investors reject a refund offer. So in brief here, investors in Telegram's blockchain project have opted to stick with the firm despite the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's recent injunction against the messaging platform's token offering. Both groups of investors in Telegram's twin $850 million funding rounds have now agreed to accept extensions for the Telegram Open Network launch following the October 23rd deadline, according to Forbes Russia. The offer to accept the extension was first sent to TON investors a week after the SEC's October 11th injunction, claiming the Gram token is a security. That's what the story is in brief. There is more to it, of course, but we're running a bit long today, so I'll leave it to you all to check out the details for all the Telegram fans out there in the altcoin buzz army. That about rounds it out today, everybody. Do be sure you are following us on all the regular social media channels. Keep checking back into altcoinbuzz.io for all the latest. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell to receive notifications if you enjoyed today's video. Best of luck if you choose to invest on this Thursday. But it's almost the end of the week, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, we hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.